So, again, as with all of the stories I do on this channel that are more about politics, I'm trying not to do this from a political angle. I'm trying to do it from like a media angle, right? And how it reflects the media and entertainment industry, right? So I want to talk today about Biden dropping out, which, not to get too political, he should have done January 21st, 2021, right? Everyone thought when they voted for him in 2020 that he was going to be a one-term president, that he would kind of gracefully step aside. And then he was like, I like being president. I've been trying to become president for 50 years. I don't want to stop this. This is great. But of course, not this past weekend, but the weekend before that, Joe Biden officially announced via a tweet, a post on X, because he had COVID, he wasn't feeling well, that he was dropping out of the presidential race. And the reason why I'm talking about this story is it shows, like I've been talking about with all these stories about Joe Biden's presidential campaign. It's like if I had a nickel for every time I did it, I would have 3 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened 3 times. This story shows how valuable live television news still is, and the news media still is, right? So this announcement, I think this post, it was like 1:45 on that Sunday afternoon. From that afternoon till the evening, in one day, nearly 12 million viewers tuned into coverage last Sunday afternoon on all the different channels, right? So between 2 and 4 p.m., Fox beat out everyone else. Fox had a total audience in that 2-hour window from 2 to 4 of about 3.196 million people. CNN had just a little under 2 million. MSNBC was not far behind. ABC had about 1.3 million. CBS had 1.1. So, and notably, it didn't just have a high viewership. It was pretty plentiful when it came to the key demographic of 25 to 54-year-olds for advertisers, right? So Fox had about 564,000 viewers in that time frame. CNN had about 496. ABC had 313. And this is all in thousands, of course. MSNBC had about 280, and CBS had 244, right? And again, not only that, viewership climbed rapidly between 1:45 and 2 p.m. And I can speak to that. I had actually just gotten out of the shower, and I heard Vivian, my fiance, yell from the other room, "Biden dropped out!" And I went, "What?" So what did we do? We turned on the news. We don't have cable, but we have Max, which now they've rolled out CNN functionality. So we put on CNN, and we basically just threw it on. We just threw it on in the background for hours, right? And we were a captive audience, right? We even if I wasn't paying attention after maybe an hour or so, because at a certain point it was just like the same info and them just saying the same thing over and over, I was still listening. So, if an ad came on, I would hear it, right? And I would imagine that was the experience of a lot of people, right? And again, I think it speaks to the value, if there is one. I think that moments like these reinforce, that these 24/7 cable news stations that really came into existence in the 80s and then the 90s with like CNN and MSNBC and Fox. 24/7 cable news stations are worth their weight in gold during such moments, right? Because during a moment like this, like I wouldn't quite call it a crisis, but it's a big news event. You want constant access, right? People want to stay updated on what's going on. Twitter used to be really crucial for that, but of course it's diminished significantly. Just because there's less people on it, it's harder to trust what's on Twitter now. And then this isn't just Twitter, and this isn't recent, but it also doesn't help how our feeds are not algorithmically or sorted and not chronologically sorted. Like ideally, you could just have stuff like this, and then this, and then this in the order that they were posted. But unfortunately, what can you do, right? I believe I even read that basically in a 4-year span, cable news stations like a CNN or Fox are not profitable or not very profitable for about 3 of those 4 years. But then the election years get so much attention that it helps basically make up for those other 3 years, those slower years, right? There's still the issue, when you have constant access, doesn't mean you always have constant information, right? And this speaks to a larger issue with cable news that it really bothers me. But this has been a thing since the 80s, so it's not like I'm the first to say this, and nor do I think there's a simple solution. But a lot of cable news punditry is still snack food versus like a nutritious diet, right? Like reading an article, not because it's written. I'm not trying to, pit mediums against one another. But usually, actual reporting is more intellectually nutritious. Whereas, like I said, if you could see this on every channel, regardless of your political affiliation. You watch MSNBC, you watch CNN, you watch Fox. At least what we saw on CNN, they just kept circling the drain. It's like at a certain point, there's no new info. So they're just restating the facts, restating the same opinions and viewpoint over and over and over. And they're just circling the drain. And it basically, that's the spectrum kind of basically is on two extremes. So on one hand, they're either just regurgitating highly prepared talking points, because again, they're usually, most cable news pundits are essentially de facto political operatives, right? They basically, speak for whatever party they are aligned with, right? In a lot of ways, right? So you have that on one end, and that could get really just draining after just hearing the same kind of fake, phony talking point over and over and over. And then the other extreme is that they're just providing unprepared and empty remarks. So there's just not a lot of substance to what they're saying, right? So that's the big issue. So it's like after a couple hours of having CNN on in the background, I was like, I gotta turn this off. Like I'm not getting anything out of this. It's just empty calories, right? But again, similarly, people, the death of TV and all this stuff, we've been talking about this forever. But again, in moments like this, it's sports and live news. And similarly, a few days later, on this past Wednesday, when Biden made his official speech dropping out, it also received high viewership. In fact, for his 11-minute address, it received across all the different networks 29 million viewers, 5 million of which were from that key 25 to 54 demographic, right? Obviously, there's no ads during the speech, but people want that coverage, even if it's just circling the drain. People want that coverage and opinion before and after the event, right? So the thing was at 8 o'clock, so people maybe turn on CNN or Fox at 7:30, listen to people talking about, well, here's what Biden's going to do, and here's why this is so, blah, blah, blah. And then after the speech, people saying, who off the cuff are going to say, well, here's the 10 reasons why that was a great speech, or here's 8 reasons why that was the worst speech in American history, right? And so you're going to get ads in that part, right? So again, anchor events like a speech, like a football game, bring people in, and they'll sit through everything else, right? Cable news just needs to switch to streaming. I think they just need to bite the bullet. Again, like I mentioned, I'm not saying CNN flopped with their standalone streaming service. What was it, CNN Go or CNN Plus or whatever? I don't even remember what it was called. And it lasted for like a month, right? They need to, the way they've done it where they've integrated it into Max, and it's literally a tab, so it'll be like movies, TV shows, news. You click on news, and you have the complete CNN broadcast at your disposal. That's how you're going to keep this business model alive, by making it easily accessible for people, right? Again, we don't have cable. We've never had cable. Like I've had cable when I was a kid with my parents. I have never myself purchased cable. I'm not a cord cutter. I'm a cord never, right? But we could stream CNN on Max, right? And again, we could just throw it on. But all of this to say, like I've said many times on the show, it speaks to traditional television media's surprising yet continued relevance and value in American politics. We saw it with the debate and how that completely changed the narrative for Joe Biden that led to this moment. The reports of live television news's death have been greatly exaggerated,